freight broker or freight agent. In this video, we are going to look at both being a freight brokerage owner and an agent, and I'm going to help you decide which one is going to be right for you. See, this is a big decision that you should make before you enter the industry, or if things aren't going the way that you particularly like right now. This video is going to help you decide which of those paths is going to be better for your goals, aspirations, and just the general lifestyle that you want to live. So we're going to explore the three factors that I feel are the most important to being a freight broker and a freight agent, right? So the key differences that come with both of those responsibilities are going to have to do with major parts of your life. Those being time, money, and risk, right? So it's the time that you have in a day, the money that you're willing to put up and bet on yourself, and then the risk that you're willing to take on. Right, because some of this stuff, when you're moving freight and in logistics, is really risky business. We have one order out right now. It was part of $1 million job, and things did not go as smoothly as we would have liked. There were some problems with the Department of Transport. So unexpected things happen, and you have to be ready, willing, and able to deploy certain assets and certain resources that you just might not be willing to. Right, so by the time this video is over, you're gonna have a clear picture on where you should go, what you should do, and hopefully how to find the right home for you so that you wind up in the right place. So the first part about being a broker that we need to look at, right, the difference between a broker and an agent is the time commitment. How much time do you have to dedicate to learning this craft, to building the business, and creating the life that you want? Now, we don't need to prove that there's opportunity in freight, right? I think it's like a $23 billion industry. So even if you capture 0.0001% of that industry, you can make a very good living for yourself, right? You can make millions of dollars moving freight as an agent or a brokerage owner. I'm not going to debate that question. It's hard to get there, but it is possible. So we need to look at the time. How much time are you willing to put in? Because each avenue has a different time frame, right? So let's look at freight brokerage owners, for example. If we start with a freight brokerage owner, you have to experience a lot more than you would than if you were a freight agent. Now, I'll give you some examples. As a freight broker, the first thing you have to do is register your business, right? That's creating your LLC, doing your government filings, getting the bonds so that you can operate legally. All of that stuff takes a lot of time, right? So it might take you between 90 and 120 days just to get up and running when you decide to open up your freight brokerage. An agent, on the other hand, all you really need to do is sign a contract and essentially you're up and running the next day. A lot less time involved in the initial setup. Right, so now let's talk about the actual growth. How long does it take to grow your brokerage versus how long does it take to grow your agent? Now, of course, like everything, it depends, but there is a way to shortcut the learning curve to make it more favorable for you. Now, as a brokerage owner, you are starting from complete scratch. You have no credit. Your customers don't know who you are. You have no customers. Carriers don't know who you are. Factoring companies don't know who you are. You are a ghost, right? You just dropped into this huge industry and you have to start making a name for yourself from scratch. That takes a lot of time. Doing those visits to customers, making those calls every single day, networking with the carriers, that is a lot of time up front that you have to be willing to go in the red. And what I mean by that is you're going to lose money for at least the first 6 months minimum. Year to 2 years is more realistic, right? So if you can't afford to punt that time and spend that time building up, being a brokerage owner might not be for you. Now let's look at freight agents on the other hand. Freight agents are simply members of another brokerage, right? So as long as you find the right home, you are pretty much piggybacking off of somebody else's reputation. You're using somebody else's carrier network. You're using somebody else's infrastructure, right? All those licenses are in place. All of those filings are already done for you. And all you really have to do is pick up the phone and you have the support of somebody behind you, right? That's what the freight agent gets. But the freight brokerage has to build that for themselves, right? And that's one of the hardest parts about starting your brokerage. to put this into numbers, like for you to see, as a freight agent, you could get up and running operationally in 1 day to 1 week. You can get a book of business as an agent within 6 months, and you could be profitable within the first year. As a freight brokerage owner, that timeline is a lot farther down. You can expect to be profitable hopefully within the first 8 to 12 months, but more realistically, you'll see profits and actual sustainable income after the first year to 2 years. Now, of course, there are anomalies. People do it faster, people do it slower, but the general consensus, the majority of people are not going to make it before year 1. So now the number 2 thing you need to look at when you're deciding whether to be a freight broker or a freight agent is the money factor. How much money do you think it takes to become an agent versus open your own business? Well, let's examine that a little bit. As a freight brokerage owner, you have to incur expenses before you ever even think about making a dollar. You have to form your LLC, which costs about $300. You have to file your bond, which costs anywhere between $1,700 a year to maybe $5,000 a year, depending on your credit. You have to do your government filings. It's a $300 processing fee, I believe. You have to buy all the software. Your load boards cost about $89 a month. Your accounting software costs about $30 a month or $900 up front. You have to buy your phone system. That's $10 to $20 a month. You have to buy your email. That's $20 a month. You have to host your website. That's another $20 a month, right? So all in, you're looking at a few $1,000s just to get the opportunity to pick up the phone and call a customer. Now, if you look at freight agents on the other hand, and again, this is if you find the right home. Freight agents who find the right brokerage to work under don't have to worry about any of those setup costs, except for maybe an LLC to run their contractor agreement under. So maybe a few $100s, and then some brokerages make their agents pay for software, so you're looking at another $100 or so a month. Right, so the cost comparison is not even comparable. The first choice being as a brokerage owner, you're spending thousands of dollars just to get started. As a freight agent, you're looking at a few $100s and less than a week before you could get up and running. So you have to really sit down, look at your budget, look at your current financial stability, and see if becoming a freight brokerage owner is going to put you in a bigger hole than you're in right now. Right? We already decided that there's opportunity here. It's just a matter of which opportunity should you take that will maximize your return in the long run. And let me tell you that being an agent with a high commission split, you will earn more money and have less headaches than the brokerage owner who is paying you your split, right? Yeah, maybe you're giving them a little bit off the top if you're a 60-40 split or 70-30, whatever it is. Maybe you're not making 100% commission, but you know what? Look at any profitable business in the world. Their profit margin is between 20 and 30% on average. Some, of course, are up there between 50 and 80, but freight brokerage, you can expect to see between 20 and 30. And being an agent gives you an automatic 70% profit margin, right? Well, that's depending on the loads that you're moving, but the general consensus is you'll make the same amount of money with a lot less upfront capital, right? So that's something to think about when you're making this decision. Now, the third part of this freight opportunity that we need to look at when we're deciding between being a freight brokerage owner or an agent is the liability that we are personally willing to take on. Now, I can tell you that when your name is on a legal corporation formation, yes, there are some areas where you're protected, but in general, you are liable for the actions of that corporation, right? You can't set up a corporation and think that just because you have this, limited liability entity that you can scam people or you can get off easy when things go wrong, right? You still have a responsibility to keep that going. There are, of course, people who think that they could just open up LLCs every time something goes wrong and then the new entity will protect them. Sometimes that's the case, most times it's not. When you're looking at liabilities, you have to understand that when you're moving stuff that is typically of a very high value, we just did a load where one single piece, we did 66 truckloads, one piece was worth about $1.1 million. I had another one worth $1 million that was sitting on a flatbed for a month and a half because It didn't have wheels on it, and we couldn't find anywhere to lift it up to install these wheels. When that freight is in your custody, it is your responsibility. And as a freight brokerage owner, you are responsible not only for the freight that your book of business moves, but for all of the freight that your agents are moving. Right? On a daily basis, we move, I don't know, anywhere between 30 and 60 loads a day. We have millions and millions of dollars worth of product moving under our MC, right, as a brokerage. That's a lot of liability for us to take. And of course, if you break it down individually, it looks a lot smaller. But if we had a really, really bad day, we would be in a lot of trouble. And I hope that never happens to us, and I hope that never happens to you. But when you sign up to be a brokerage owner, you have to know what you're putting your name on. If you're moving a truckload of really expensive iPhones and that truck rolls over, guess whose name is tied to that accident? The brokerage. If we flip that, right, I already put a picture in your head. If we flip that and you're a freight agent, if something goes wrong with one of your loads, you're moving it under your brokerage's umbrella. So the ones really liable for this are going to be your brokerage. When something goes wrong with our agent's loads, our agent isn't really liable for anything because that's the arrangement that we have with them. Right? If something goes wrong with an agent's loads, typically what we'll do is we, as the brokerage, will pay out whatever it is, if it's a claim, if it's an accident, whatever it is, because our number one priority is making our agents happy. So we are, as a company, we're perfectly willing to take the risk, right? We know what we're getting ourselves into, and it's a lot. Agents don't necessarily have to worry about that. So it's all about your personal preference of a risk tolerance. How much risk are you willing to put on yourself? How much do you have to lose if something goes wrong? Of course, having a company and an LLC set up protects your personal assets, but it doesn't protect your livelihood. If something goes wrong with that LLC and you have no more way of making an income, you could be in big trouble down the line. Being an agent shields you from all of that liability because now you have backup. At least you have somebody in your corner that's able to come to your aid when something goes wrong and help you manage those risks. And of course, it all comes down to choosing the right brokerage. So I hope this video helps you on your journey to decide whether you should become a freight brokerage owner or a freight broker agent. And now, my personal opinion is that the two jobs are a little bit different. If you have dreams of being a business owner, and you have dreams of managing a team, and you want financial freedom, by all means, start your own brokerage. Just understand the risks. That's my message with this video. Understand what you're getting yourself into. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you need to know what can happen, and you need to equip yourself mentally in order to break through those barriers. If your goal is to have it easy, right? If you just want an easy life and you don't want the headaches of running a business and you don't want to manage employees and you just want to have a really well-paying job and the time freedom to spend time with your family, friends, and all that stuff, then be a freight agent. It's all about how much you're willing to put in. As a freight brokerage owner, you're going to be putting in a lot of time, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, and that doesn't necessarily fit with anyone's lifestyle. It's also different managing yourself versus managing people. Some people can manage people, some people can manage themselves, some people can't do either. So you have to find out what the best thing is for you by looking at your strengths and your weaknesses. And hopefully the points that I touched on in this video will help you do that. So as always, make sure you hit that follow button. If this video helped you in any way at all, please let me know. Comment down below what you took away from this video. And as always, I want to invite you to join my private community. It's called the Freight Broker Network. It's completely free. You can find a link in the description. Invite yourself in, and I'll let you into the #1 online broker community on the internet. Again, I hope this helps, and until the next video, I'll see you soon.